The challenge begins. Nell, a member of the prestigious avian species from the planet Sotharn, prided himself on being part of a race renowned for their agility, intellect, and superior physiology. They considered themselves the pinnacle of evolution, their slender, scaled frames capable of immense feats of strength and endurance. Yet, as he stood in the human training facility on Earth, clutching an Olympic barbell, Nell felt anything but superior. The room buzzed with activity. Humans of all shapes and sizes were lifting weights, sprinting on treadmills, and performing exercises Nell couldn't comprehend. Sweat glistened on their skin, their faces marked by determination. It was a stark contrast to the sterile, technology-driven training halls on Sotharn, where physical exertion was considered primitive. Nell couldn't shake the thought, why do these creatures willingly endure such physical torment? "Come on, one more rep," barked the human instructor, Captain Emily Carter, her voice cutting through the cacophony like a whip. She was tall and muscular, with a commanding presence that seemed to amplify her voice. Her clipboard bore numerous scribbles, presumably notes on Nell's performance, or lack thereof. Nell's scaled arms quivered as he attempted to lift the barbell, loaded with weights he'd arrogantly chosen upon entering the room. Sweat dripped from his brow, his usually radiant green scales dulled with exertion. Earth's gravity, nearly twice that of Sotharn's, pressed down on him like an invisible force of malice. I cannot," Nell gasped, his voice trembling with strain. "You cannot." Emily raised an eyebrow, stepping closer. "Or you won't? Big difference." "Nell." Her tone carried the kind of challenge Nell couldn't ignore. The avian were a proud species, and the insinuation that he lacked willpower stung. With a guttural cry, he mustered every ounce of strength and forced the barbell upward, the metal groaning under his effort. It barely reached the resting hooks before his arms gave out. As the barbell clanged into place, Nell collapsed onto the mat, his breathing labored. His pride was in tatters. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, questioning why he'd volunteered for this joint training program with humans. It had seemed like an easy opportunity to observe the primitive Earth species in their natural habitat, to confirm the avian belief that humans were weak, soft, and unremarkable. Yet here he was, defeated by their gravity and their training methods. The origins of misjudgment. Nell's initial perception of humanity had been shaped by galactic propaganda. Most advanced species viewed humans as an evolutionary accident, short-lived, emotionally volatile, and overly reliant on brute force. They lived on a death world, a term used to describe planets with harsh climates, intense weather patterns, and predators capable of ending lives in an instant. While these conditions had given humans a reputation for being survivors, they were still considered unsophisticated in the grand scheme of the galaxy. However, what Nell failed to realize was that survival on a death world bred something extraordinary. It wasn't just their technology or their adaptability. It was their indomitable spirit. First impressions matter. Nell's arrival on Earth had been uneventful. The planet was as chaotic as he imagined. Loud, bustling cities filled with unpredictable weather and endless noise. His avian colleagues had mocked the idea of traveling to Earth, but Nell had insisted, confident that his physical superiority would leave an impression. He hadn't expected Earth's gravity to hit him like a sledgehammer. Walking required effort, running was out of the question, and lifting anything heavier than his datapad felt like moving a mountain. He'd dismissed it as an adjustment period, but days had turned into weeks, and his progress was minimal. Emily Carter, his assigned mentor, had shown no sympathy. She introduced him to Earth's military training regimen with a no-nonsense approach, emphasizing endurance, strength, and mental resilience. It was grueling, and Nell couldn't understand how humans endured it daily. Yet they did, and they thrived. A humbling experience. The training facility was a reflection of human ingenuity and stubbornness. Walls adorned with motivational slogans like, "No pain, no gain," and "Strength is built, not given," seemed almost taunting. Humans pushed themselves to their limits, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Nell found this mentality baffling. After his humiliating encounter with the barbell, Emily crouched beside him, her piercing blue eyes locking onto his. "Do you know why we train like this, Nell?" He shook his head, too exhausted to speak. "It's not just about strength," she said, her tone softer now. "It's about overcoming limits. Our planet pushes us harder than most. Gravity, weather, predators, you name it, we've faced it. And instead of running from challenges, we embrace them. That's what makes us human." Nell wanted to argue, to dismiss her words as mere bravado, but he couldn't. He had seen it with his own eyes. Humans didn't just survive Earth's conditions, they thrived in them. They had turned adversity into an advantage, and it was something Nell couldn't ignore. The first step toward respect. That night, as Nell lay in his quarters, he replayed the day's events in his mind. He had underestimated humans, dismissing their physicality as inferior. Yet Earth's gravity had humbled him, revealing a strength that went beyond muscle and bone. It was a strength born of persistence, determination, and an unyielding desire to grow stronger. Nell decided he would adapt. He would master Earth's gravity, not for the humans, but for himself. He realized that strength wasn't just about lifting weights, it was about lifting oneself above limitations. And for the first time since arriving on Earth, Nell felt a spark of respect for the species he'd once considered beneath him. Earth's gravity strikes hard. The dawn of a new day on Earth brought with it the relentless pull of gravity that Nell had begun to loathe. Every step out of his quarters felt like trudging through a swamp. His body ached in places he didn't know existed, and his scaled hands trembled from the residual fatigue of the previous day's training. Yet as he stood before the mirror, he saw something he hadn't noticed before. His reflection looked different. Nell leaned closer, scrutinizing the faint definition in his arms. The scales along his forearms were tighter, almost gleaming, as though his body were responding to the extreme conditions. Perhaps Earth's gravity wasn't just a tormentor. Perhaps it was a sculptor, chiseling away at his weaknesses. With a newfound determination, Nell stepped out into the crisp morning air, ready for the day's trials. He wasn't ready for the gauntlet that awaited him. The first true challenge. "Good morning, sunshine." Emily Carter's voice echoed across the training yard as Nell approached. The human instructor was already there, holding a stopwatch and a bottle of water. Behind her was a daunting obstacle course that stretched as far as Nell's eyes could see. It was a labyrinth of towering walls, suspended ropes, mud pits, and balance beams. Nell's stomach sank. "Surely you do not expect me to complete this contraption?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Emily grinned. "Oh, not just complete it. You're going to crush it. Think of this as your trial by fire." Before Nell could protest, Emily clapped her hands, signaling the start. The other trainees, humans of course, cheered from the sidelines. Their enthusiasm was both infectious and intimidating. The gauntlet begins. The first obstacle was deceptively simple, a steep wall that required scaling with a rope. Nell approached it cautiously, his talons gripping the rope tightly. Back on Zotharn, such a feat would have been trivial. But here, Earth's gravity turned every pull into a battle. His arms burned, his shoulders screamed in protest, and by the time he reached the top, his vision was blurry with exertion. Panting, Nell paused at the summit, looking down at the next challenge, a series of narrow beams suspended over a muddy pit. One wrong step, and he'd be plunged into the muck. The humans watching erupted in cheers, their chants blending into a cacophony of encouragement and mockery. "Don't overthink it, Nell," Emily called. "Just move." Swallowing his fear, Nell stepped onto the first beam. His balance faltered immediately, but he spread his arms wide, using his tail for counterbalance. Step by agonizing step, he made his way across, his heart pounding like a war drum. When he finally reached the other side, he collapsed onto the ground, covered in sweat but triumphant. The weight of the world. The gauntlet continued, crawling under barbed wire, hauling sandbags, climbing ropes, and sprinting through trenches. Each task was more grueling than the last, and Nell's body screamed for respite. His legs felt like lead, his arms were noodles, and every breath was a struggle. Yet he kept going. The humans' cheers drove him forward, their unrelenting energy a testament to their own endurance. The final obstacle loomed, a massive tire, taller than Nell, that had to be flipped end over end across a field. Emily stood beside it, arms crossed, a smug smile on her face. "This is it," she said. "One last push. Show me what you've got now." Nell stared at the tire, his mind racing. It looked impossible. He was ready to admit defeat when a voice inside him whispered, "You've come this far. Don't stop now." With a guttural roar, he bent down, his claws digging into the tire's rubber. His muscles screamed in protest as he lifted, the weight nearly toppling him backward. But he held firm. Inch by agonizing inch, he flipped the tire forward. The humans erupted in cheers as he repeated the process, his vision narrowing to a tunnel of sheer willpower. When the tire crossed the finish line, Nell collapsed onto the ground, utterly spent. Emily crouched beside him, offering a bottle of water. "You did it," she said, her tone softer than usual. "You just survived one of the toughest courses we have. And you didn't quit." Nell couldn't speak. He merely nodded, clutching the water bottle like a lifeline. His respect for humans grew exponentially in that moment. They weren't just survivors, they were warriors, molded by the harshness of their world. Lessons in resilience. As the day wore on, Nell reflected on his experience. The human strength wasn't purely physical. It was their resilience, their refusal to give up, that made them formidable. They didn't see challenges as barriers. They saw them as opportunities to grow. It was a mindset Nell had never encountered before, and he found himself intrigued. Emily interrupted his thoughts, sitting beside him on a bench as the sun dipped below the horizon. "Tough day, huh?" she said, handing him another water bottle. Nell chuckled weakly. "Your gravity is relentless. Your species is relentless." She smiled. "That's how we survive. Earth doesn't give us a choice. But you're adapting now. Faster than I expected. You've got potential." Her words ignited a spark of pride in Nell. For the first time since arriving on Earth, he felt like he belonged. He wasn't just enduring the planet's gravity. He was beginning to thrive under it. A new perspective. That night, as he rested in his quarters, Nell thought about his home on Zotharn. There, strength was measured by intellect and technology. Physical prowess was considered secondary. But here, on Earth, the two were intertwined. Humans embodied a balance that Nell found fascinating. They were thinkers and fighters, capable of adapting to any situation. Nell resolved to embrace the challenge fully. He would master Earth's gravity, not just to prove his worth to the humans, but to redefine his own understanding of strength. This was no longer just a training program. It was a journey of transformation, adapting to the impossible. Nell awoke the next morning with an ache in every muscle, as if Earth's gravity had pressed deeper into his very bones during the night. Yet, as the morning light filtered into his quarters, he felt something more than pain: pride. He had completed the obstacle course, a feat he would never have thought possible on his first day on Earth. Today, he wasn't just enduring Earth, he was ready to embrace it. The day began as usual, with Emily Carter already waiting for him in the training yard. She leaned against a bench, clipboard in hand, her usual no-nonsense expression softened by a faint smile. "Morning, Nell. Ready for the next challenge?" she asked, her tone deceptively casual. Nell squared his shoulders, his posture more confident than before. "If Earth has not broken me yet, I doubt it will today." Emily laughed, a sound that was equal parts amusement and approval. "Good, because today we're going to focus on endurance. Endurance in Earth's gravity." The training session began with a long-distance run, a concept Nell found absurd. On Zotharn, Endurance training involved mental simulations and controlled physical exertion, not running aimlessly across uneven terrain. But as he lined up with a group of human trainees, he realized this was yet another test of Earth's unique demands. The course stretched through dense forests, muddy trails, and steep inclines. Nell took his place beside Emily, who jogged with an ease that left him envious. The starting whistle blew, and the group took off. For the first mile, Nell felt confident. He matched Emily's pace, his strides long and measured. But as the terrain became more challenging, the gravity began to wear on him. His legs felt heavier with each step, and his breathing grew ragged. Sweat dripped down his scales, soaking the fabric of his training uniform. "Keep going now," Emily shouted, barely breaking a sweat. "One step at a time. Don't think about the distance, just focus on the next step." Her words resonated with him. Back on Zotharn, challenges were always tackled as a whole. Humans, it seemed, had a different approach. Break the impossible into smaller, manageable pieces. With this mindset, Nal pushed forward, one step at a time, until he found a rhythm. The forest test. As the trail wound deeper into the forest, the group encountered natural obstacles. Fallen logs, low-hanging branches, and streams that had to be crossed. Emily seemed to glide over these hurdles, her movements fluid and precise. Nal, on the other hand, stumbled, tripped, and struggled to keep up. At one point, he fell face first into the mud while trying to leap over a log. Laughter erupted from the other trainees, but Emily quickly silenced them with a sharp glare. "Get up, Nal," she said, extending a hand to him. "You're stronger than this." Nal hesitated, his pride wounded. But as he looked at her outstretched hand, he realized she wasn't mocking him. She was helping him. He grabbed her hand and pulled himself up, the mud clinging to his scales. "Humans are resilient," he muttered, more to himself than to her. Emily smirked. "And so are you. Now, let's move." The mind-over-body revelation. The run continued, and Nal began to notice something fascinating. While his body screamed in protest, his mind began to adapt. He found himself focusing less on the pain and more on the rhythm of his breathing, the sound of his footsteps, and the goal ahead. It was as if the human mentality of persistence was beginning to seep into his own psyche. By the time the group reached the final stretch, a steep hill overlooking the training facility, Nal was nearly spent. The other trainees had already reached the top, cheering each other on. Emily stayed back, jogging beside him as he struggled up the incline. "Almost there," she said, her voice steady. "Push past the pain. This is where you grow." Nal gritted his teeth, every muscle in his body on the verge of collapse. But Emily's words echoed in his mind. "This is where you grow." With a final burst of energy, he surged forward, his claws digging into the dirt as he reached the summit. The trainees erupted in cheers as he collapsed onto the grass, his chest heaving. For the first time, he felt like he belonged among them. A glimpse of humanity's secret. As the group rested, Emily approached Nal with 2 bottles of water. She handed him one and sat beside him, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "You did good today," she said, taking a sip of her water. Nal shook his head, still catching his breath. "Humans have an unmatched endurance. Your bodies adapt to this gravity with ease. I cannot fathom how you survive here." Emily smiled faintly. "It's not just about our bodies, Nal. It's about our minds. We don't see challenges as limits. We see them as opportunities. That's how we've survived everything this planet has thrown at us." Her words struck a chord with Nal. He realized that Earth's gravity wasn't just a force. It was a teacher. It pushed humans to their limits and beyond, forging a strength that was as mental as it was physical. The turning point. That night, Nal stood outside his quarters, gazing up at the stars. His home planet of Zotharn was out there, a distant speck in the galaxy. For the first time, he wondered if the Aven had been too quick to dismiss humanity. Earth's gravity its challenges, and its people had shown him a new way of thinking, a resilience that went beyond mere survival. Nal clenched his fists, his resolve solidifying. He would not only adapt to Earth's gravity, he would thrive under it. He would prove to himself and to his people that strength wasn't just about physical power. It was about the will to keep going, no matter the odds. The turning point. Nal woke before sunrise, his body aching but his mind sharper than ever. Every muscle felt the strain of his efforts, but it was no longer discouraging. It was a reminder of how far he'd come. The alien who had arrived on Earth weeks ago, confident in his species' superiority, was no longer the same. He had begun to see challenges as stepping stones, not barriers. Today, he would take his first step toward proving he could master not only Earth's gravity, but also its unyielding spirit. As he stepped into the training yard, he noticed something unusual. Emily Carter stood at the center of the field, surrounded by an assortment of equipment he hadn't seen before. Weighted vests, resistance bands, and what appeared to be an odd contraption made of ropes and pulleys. Her expression was calm but focused, as if she were planning something monumental. "You're early," Emily said, glancing at Nal as he approached. "I could not sleep," Nal admitted. "I have been thinking about what you said, about seeing challenges as opportunities. I wish to embrace this mindset fully." Emily's lips curled into a smile. "Good, because today we're going to push you harder than ever. You've proven you can survive Earth's gravity. Now, it's time to thrive in it." The weighted trial. The first challenge was deceptively simple: a weighted vest. Emily strapped the vest onto Nal, explaining that it would add 20 kilograms to his body weight. To Nal, already struggling under Earth's gravity, this felt like a punishment, but he didn't complain. He had learned that complaints were futile here. "You're going to wear this for the entire session," Emily said. "Every exercise, every movement. By the end of the day, you'll forget what it's like to move without it." Nal nodded, his resolve unwavering. The first task was a series of sprints across the training yard. Each step felt like dragging an anchor, but Nal forced himself forward, his claws digging into the dirt for traction. His breaths came in short, sharp bursts, but he refused to stop. By the time he completed the final sprint, his legs felt like they would give out. "Not bad," Emily said, barely impressed. "But this is just the warm-up." The resistance challenge. The next exercise involved resistance bands, which Emily strapped to Nal's arms and legs. The objective was to perform a series of movements, pushing, pulling, and even jumping, while fighting against the elastic resistance. At first, Nal struggled to coordinate his movements. The bands pulled him back with every step, turning even simple actions into monumental tasks. Sweat dripped from his scales, and his muscles burned with every motion. Yet, as the session continued, he began to adapt. His body found ways to move more efficiently, his strength compensating for the resistance. "You're learning," Emily said, watching him closely. "Your body's adjusting faster than I expected." "That's a good sign." Nal grunted in response, too focused on completing the set to form words. He had never felt this kind of exertion before. Raw, unfiltered effort that pushed him to his limits. And yet he welcomed it. The rope gauntlet. The final challenge of the day was the most daunting. The rope gauntlet. Emily had constructed a series of rope-based obstacles, including climbing walls, swinging platforms, and a suspended net. It was a test of agility, strength, and endurance, all amplified by the weighted vest and resistance bands. As Nal approached the first obstacle, a towering rope ladder, he hesitated. The height was intimidating, and the thought of falling sent a shiver down his spine. But then he remembered Emily's words: "Challenges are opportunities." With a deep breath, he grabbed the first rung and began to climb. The weight on his back pulled him downward, and his grip faltered more than once. But he kept going, his focus narrowing to the task at hand. When he reached the top, he paused for a moment, taking in the view. The training yard stretched out below him, and for the first time, he felt a sense of accomplishment. The rest of the gauntlet was equally grueling. Swinging from one rope to another required precision and timing, and the net crawl tested his balance and core strength. By the time he reached the end, his body was trembling with exhaustion, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. The aftermath of triumph. When Nell finally collapsed onto the grass, Emily crouched beside him, offering her usual bottle of water. This time, her expression was one of genuine pride. "You've come a long way, Nell," she said. "When you first got here, I didn't think you'd last a week. But now, you're proving me wrong." Nell took a sip of water, his breathing still heavy. "It is not just my body that has changed," he said. "It is my mind. I am beginning to understand why humans are so resilient. You do not see gravity as a limitation, you see it as a tool." Emily nodded. "Exactly. And you're starting to use that tool yourself. Keep this up, and you'll be stronger than you ever imagined." A new resolve. That evening, as Nell sat alone in his quarters, he reflected on the day's events. The pain in his muscles was almost unbearable, but it was a reminder of how much he had grown. He thought about his people on Zotharn, who had always looked down on physical challenges as primitive. They had never known the satisfaction of pushing beyond their limits, of finding strength in adversity. Nell clenched his fists, his resolve hardening. He would not return to Zotharn as the same person who had left. He would bring back a new understanding of strength, one that combined mind and body, resilience and adaptability. And when he did, he would show his people what humanity had taught him. Earth's gravity had been his greatest adversary. Now, it was becoming his greatest ally, proving humanity's worth. Nell's transformation was becoming undeniable. The alien who had once struggled to stand under Earth's gravity was now a figure of awe among the human trainees. Yet the most challenging test still loomed. Word had spread that the Earth training program would host a high-stakes intergalactic competition, a gauntlet designed to test physical and mental endurance. This event would bring together representatives from several species across the galaxy, each vying to prove their dominance. For humans, it was a chance to silence the whispers of inferiority that echoed through the cosmos. For Nell, it was an opportunity to test everything he had learned and to showcase the strength Earth had forged within him. The call to compete. The announcement of the competition came during a gathering in the training facility's main hall. A holographic display floated above the room, showcasing the event's details. The competition, known as the Gauntlet of Titans, would include a series of brutal trials. Physical endurance, mental acuity, and team-based challenges. Emily Carter addressed the group, her voice carrying a mix of excitement and seriousness. "This isn't just about winning," she said. "This is about showing the galaxy what humanity is made of. We've been underestimated for too long. Now's our chance to change that." The room erupted in cheers, but Nell remained silent. He knew this competition was more than just a proving ground for humanity. It was a personal reckoning. He had to participate. He had to prove, not just to the galaxy, but to himself, that he had embraced Earth's challenges and emerged stronger. When the time came for volunteers, Nell stepped forward. A murmur spread through the crowd, followed by scattered applause. Emily's eyes met his, a hint of pride in her expression. "You're sure about this?" she asked quietly. Nell nodded. "I must do this, for myself and for the lessons I have learned here." Emily placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then let's get to work." Training for the gauntlet. The weeks leading up to the Gauntlet of Titans were grueling. Nell's training regimen intensified, pushing him to the brink of his endurance. Every morning began with long-distance runs through the rugged terrain surrounding the training facility. Each evening ended with resistance exercises that left his muscles trembling. Emily introduced new challenges designed to test Nell's adaptability. One day, she blindfolded him and had him navigate an obstacle course relying only on verbal cues. Another day, she placed him in an isolation chamber, forcing him to solve complex puzzles under immense psychological pressure. Each task was designed to simulate the unpredictable nature of the competition. Nal's body began to change. His scaled frame, once slender and fragile, grew more defined. His movements became more confident, his reactions sharper. He was no longer merely adapting to Earth's gravity, he was thriving in it. The day of reckoning. The day of the gauntlet of Titans arrived, and the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. The competition was held in a massive arena, its design a blend of advanced technology and brutalist architecture. Thousands of spectators from across the galaxy filled the stands, their voices blending into a cacophony of cheers and jeers. The competitors represented a variety of species: the hulking Varnathans, known for their brute strength; the swift and agile Therithians; the cerebral Xylocs, masters of strategy and intellect. Among them stood Nal, representing Earth alongside Emily and two other human trainees. The first event was a test of endurance, a grueling marathon through a simulated alien landscape filled with obstacles and environmental hazards. The terrain shifted unpredictably. Rocky cliffs gave way to swamps, and searing deserts transitioned into freezing tundras. Nal's training kicked in immediately. He had learned to pace himself, to conserve energy when needed and push forward when opportunities arose. His claws dug into the ground as he scaled cliffs, his balance held steady on narrow ledges, and his newfound stamina kept him moving through the most punishing conditions. By the time he crossed the finish line, Nal was among the top competitors. The spectators, initially skeptical of the human team, began to take notice. The mind over matter challenge. The second event was a mental trial designed to test problem-solving under pressure. Competitors were placed in isolated chambers and presented with holographic puzzles that required logic, creativity, and teamwork. The human team, including Nal, approached the challenge with a strategy Emily had drilled into them: communicate clearly, trust each other, and think outside the box. Nal's unique perspective as an alien who had trained with humans proved invaluable. While the other teams argued or struggled to adapt, Nal and his team worked seamlessly, blending human ingenuity with his methodical approach. The holographic puzzle dissolved into light as they completed it moments before the timer ran out. Their victory drew cheers from the crowd, a ripple of respect spreading through the arena. The final trial. Strength and unity. The final trial was a team-based obstacle course that combined all the skills tested in the previous events: endurance, strategy, and adaptability. The course was brutal, a series of challenges that required competitors to lift massive weights, navigate treacherous terrain, and outwit mechanical traps. Nal and the human team moved as one. Emily led with precision, barking commands that cut through the chaos. The human trainees used their strength and agility to tackle physical obstacles, while Nal's unique physiology allowed him to handle tasks that required dexterity and endurance under extreme conditions. At one point, the team encountered a massive barrier that required all four of them to work together to lift it. Nal's claws dug into the metal as he pushed with every ounce of strength he had. His muscles burned, his vision blurred, but he didn't stop. When the barrier finally shifted, the team surged forward, leaving the other competitors behind. The moment of triumph. As the human team crossed the final checkpoint, the arena erupted in cheers. The spectators, who had once dismissed Earth as a backwater planet, now stood in awe of its representatives. The judges announced the results, and the human team emerged as victors. Nal stood on the podium alongside Emily and the others, his chest swelling with pride. The medal placed around his neck was more than just a symbol of victory. It was proof that he had overcome the impossible. Earth's gravity, its challenges, and its people had transformed him in ways he couldn't have imagined. As the crowd chanted the names of the victors, Nal looked at Emily and said, "Humans are more than I ever imagined. You are not just survivors. You are warriors." Emily smiled. "And so are you, Nal." Revelations and respect. The roar of the crowd still echoed in Nell's mind long after the Gauntlet of Titans had concluded. The rush of victory, the exhilaration of having pushed past his limits, and the profound sense of camaraderie with his human teammates left him feeling transformed. For the first time in his life, Nell felt the full weight of what it meant to earn respect, not through lineage or status, but through effort and resilience. As the days passed, the intergalactic arena slowly emptied, and the competitors returned to their homeworlds. The human team remained on Earth, celebrated as heroes by their peers. Yet for Nell, the victory marked the beginning of a new chapter. A deeper understanding of the humans he had once underestimated, and the profound strength Earth had instilled in him. A galactic shift in perspective. The aftermath of the competition brought waves of attention to humanity. Reports of the human team's victory spread across the galaxy, challenging long-held stereotypes about Earth and its inhabitants. Species that had once dismissed humans as weak or inconsequential were forced to reevaluate their assumptions. Nell, too, became a subject of fascination. His transformation under Earth's gravity and his role in the human team's success were widely discussed. Alien journalists sought interviews, curious about his experience. At first, Nell was hesitant to speak. His journey felt deeply personal, not something to be dissected by the galaxy at large. But Emily encouraged him, reminding him that his story could inspire others to see humanity and themselves differently. In one such interview, a Xyloxian reporter asked, "What was it about Earth that enabled you to succeed in the competition?" Nell paused, choosing his words carefully. "Earth is a crucible," he said. "Its gravity, its challenges, they test you in ways no simulation can replicate. But it is not just the planet. It is the people. Humans possess a resilience, a refusal to give up, that is both humbling and inspiring. I am who I am today because of what I learned from them." The interviews spread across galactic networks, sparking conversations about the underestimated strength of humanity and the potential of interspecies collaboration. Confronting his people, Nell's return to Zopharn was bittersweet. He had left as a proud representative of the Aven, confident in his species' superiority. Now, he returned with a deeper understanding of strength and a newfound respect for humanity. Yet, he knew his people would struggle to accept what he had learned. The Council of Elders summoned him upon his arrival. They were eager to hear about his time on Earth and the Gauntlet of Titans. The chamber, a grand hall adorned with intricate carvings and shimmering lights, was filled with Aven dignitaries, their scales glinting in the artificial glow. Nell stood before them, his posture confident but respectful. He recounted his experiences, from his initial struggles with Earth's gravity to his training under Emily Carter, and finally, to the team's victory in the competition. His words painted a vivid picture of humanity's strength and the transformative power of Earth's challenges. When he finished, an elder with piercing silver eyes spoke. "You speak highly of these humans, Nell. Do you mean to suggest they are our equals?" Nell met the elder's gaze without hesitation. "No," he said. "They are more than our equals. They possess a strength we have long overlooked, not just physical strength, but a strength of will, of spirit. They thrive in conditions we would consider impossible, and they do so with a resilience that commands respect." The chamber fell silent. Some elders looked intrigued, others skeptical. Finally, the elder who had spoken said, "You have changed, Nell. Whether that change is for the better remains to be seen." Sharing the lessons of Earth, Nell's words sparked debate among the Aven. Some dismissed his experiences as anomalies, arguing that humans were still an inferior species. Others, however, saw the potential for growth and collaboration. Nell seized the opportunity to share what he had learned. He proposed a new initiative, an exchange program between Earth and Zopharn, allowing Aven and humans to train together. "We have much to learn from each other," Nell argued. "Their strength complements our intellect. Together, we can achieve what neither of us could alone." The proposal faced resistance, but Nal's passion and conviction swayed key members of the council. The initiative was approved on a trial basis, with Nal appointed as its first ambassador. Bridging two worlds. The exchange program began with a small group of Aven traveling to Earth, while a group of humans journeyed to Zofarn. Nal took a personal role in mentoring the Aven participants, preparing them for the challenges of Earth's gravity and the intensity of human training. Watching his people struggle as he once had was a humbling experience. Some faltered, frustrated by the unrelenting gravity and the demands of human endurance exercises, but others began to adapt, inspired by the humans around them. Nal saw reflections of his own journey in their determination and resilience. Meanwhile, the humans on Zofarn marveled at the Aven's technological advancements and intellectual pursuits. They shared their own perspectives, teaching the Aven the value of adaptability and persistence. Bonds formed between the two groups, breaking down centuries of prejudice and misunderstanding. A new era of cooperation. Months later, Nal stood at the edge of Earth's training yard, watching a group of Aven and humans work together on an obstacle course. The sight filled him with pride. What had begun as a personal journey had grown into something far greater, a bridge between two worlds, built on mutual respect and a shared desire to grow stronger. Emily joined him, her arms crossed as she observed the trainees. "You've come a long way, Nal," she said, "and you've brought your people with you." Nal nodded, his gaze unwavering. "It is thanks to what you and your world taught me. Strength is not about domination. It is about overcoming together." Emily smiled. "You've got it, Ambassador." The seeds of change. The success of the exchange program rippled across the galaxy, inspiring other species to reconsider their views of Earth and its people. Humanity, once dismissed as insignificant, was now recognized as a force of resilience and adaptability. For Nal, the journey was far from over. He continued to serve as a bridge between the Aven and humanity, fostering understanding and collaboration. And as he stood on the precipice of this new era, he knew one thing for certain. Earth's gravity had not broken him. It had forged him into something stronger. A new era of cooperation. The Interstellar exchange program had surpassed everyone's expectations, fostering an unprecedented alliance between Earth and Zofarn. It wasn't just the physical adaptation or intellectual collaboration that marked its success. It was the mutual respect and understanding that had taken root between two vastly different species. And at the heart of it all stood Nal, whose personal transformation had become a symbol of what could be achieved when barriers were broken. A ceremony of recognition. The day was momentous. Delegates from across the galaxy had gathered at Earth's United Federation Hall to commemorate the success of the exchange program and celebrate the partnership between Earth and Zofarn. The hall, a marvel of human and alien architecture, glowed with soft luminescence, its walls displaying holographic projections of the stars that united them. Nal stood beside Emily Carter on the grand stage, their presence a representation of the alliance. He was no longer the uncertain, struggling alien who had arrived on Earth months ago. His once fragile frame had become stronger, his posture more commanding. The scales on his body gleamed, reflecting both the light in the room and the journey he had undertaken. A human representative stepped forward to address the assembly. "Today, we stand as proof that differences are not obstacles, but opportunities," she began, her voice filled with pride. What began as a humble experiment has grown into something transformative. Earth and Zofarn are now bound not by necessity, but by mutual respect and shared vision. As applause filled the hall, Nal was invited to speak. He stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over the diverse crowd. His voice was steady and firm as he began. "When I first came to Earth, I believed myself strong. My people, the Aven, had taught me that strength came from intellect and technological superiority. I looked at humans and saw a species born of struggle, shaped by a harsh and unforgiving planet. I thought that made you weak. I was wrong." The audience fell silent, hanging on his every word. Earth did not just challenge me, it changed me. It showed me that strength is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to overcome it. Your gravity, your resilience, and your spirit taught me lessons I will carry for the rest of my life. Today, I stand before you not as a representative of one species, but as a bridge between two. The hall erupted into applause, a chorus of appreciation that echoed the unity Nell's words had inspired. Building a united future. In the months that followed, the collaboration between Earth and Zotharn deepened. The exchange program expanded, involving more species who sought to learn from humanity's unique perspective and Earth's challenges. Humans traveled to distant planets, sharing their adaptability and ingenuity, while alien species brought their own wisdom and skills to Earth. Nell became a prominent figure in this new era, not just as an ambassador, but as a symbol of the transformative power of cooperation. His role grew beyond the exchange program, encompassing diplomatic missions, joint research initiatives, and even military collaborations aimed at preserving galactic peace. One of the most significant projects to emerge from the alliance was the Unity Initiative, a massive space station constructed through the combined efforts of Earth, Zotharn, and other allied species. The station served as a hub for knowledge sharing, cultural exchange, and collaborative problem-solving. Its construction was a testament to what could be achieved when differences were embraced, not feared. Returning to Zotharn. For now, returning to Zotharn as a changed individual brought challenges of its own. Many Avens still clung to their old ways, viewing humans as inferior, but Nell's influence was undeniable. His journey, widely publicized across the galaxy, had sparked a growing movement among younger Aven who sought to embrace the lessons of Earth. Nell established training programs on Zotharn, blending human physical regimens with Aven intellectual pursuits. At first, these programs were met with skepticism, but as participants began to experience the same transformations Nell had undergone, both physically and mentally, their popularity grew. Over time, even the most traditionalist factions of the Aven Council could no longer deny the value of the collaboration. An unbreakable bond. Back on Earth, Emily Carter reflected on her time with Nell. Their journey together had been transformative not just for him, but for her as well. She had seen firsthand how perseverance could bridge even the widest gaps between cultures and species. Their friendship endured, even as their responsibilities took them to different corners of the galaxy. They stayed in touch through holographic messages, sharing updates and insights. Emily often joked that Nell had become more human than alien, to which Nell would respond, "And you, Emily, have become more Aven." The legacy of change. Years later, Nell found himself standing on the surface of Earth once more. The training yard where his journey had begun was quiet now, its paths worn smooth by countless footsteps. He walked slowly, his mind filled with memories of the struggles, triumphs, and lessons that had shaped him. As he reached the center of the yard, he paused, looking up at the sky. The stars above seemed brighter tonight, a reminder of the infinite possibilities that awaited in the cosmos. Earth had taught him that strength was not static. It was a journey, a continuous process of growth and adaptation. Nell smiled to himself. He had come to Earth as an outsider, convinced of his superiority. He was leaving as an ally, a friend, and a believer in the unyielding spirit of humanity. A final message. In a final gesture of unity, Nell recorded a message to be broadcast across the galaxy. His voice, steady and filled with conviction, carried his parting words. To those who underestimate Earth and its people, I say this: strength is not found in the absence of struggle, but in the courage to face it. Humanity has shown me that even the harshest conditions can forge something extraordinary. And together, as allies, there is no challenge we cannot overcome. As the message reached every corner of the galaxy, it became a rallying cry for unity and understanding, a legacy of the bond forged between Earth and Zotharn.